Shana Tova. It's not Yom Kippur, so. Last week, after our Temple Emmanuel video, Kindness came out, I received an email, and the note, was kindness, but it had a question mark. So it was, kindness? And it was a video with a pastor. I have the name written, but it would be Lashon Hara if I said the name. So there was a pastor from one of the ministries in the country who was at a very big pulpit, seemed like it was on YouTube or TV or wherever. And he starts telling this story, and I want to relate the story to you. I'm 83 years old. That's the story, saying that, okay? I'm 83 years old, and I was in the McDonald's drive-thru, and a young lady behind me leaned on her horn and started mouthing something because I was taking too long to make my order. So when I got up to the first window, I paid for her order along with my own. And the cashier must have told her this because as we moved up, she leaned out the window and she waved to me and she mouthed, "Thank you," like that. Obviously, she was embarrassed that I had repaid her rudeness with kindness. When I got to the second window, I showed them both receipts and I took her food too. Now she has to go to the back of the line to get her food again. Don't blow your horn at old people. We've been around a long time. And then he took a couple pieces of paper, he smashed them on the lectern, and he said, "Is that good or what?" I love it. How ironic that story called Kindness kind of made me mad. And it's weird because I laughed just like you did, and then I started thinking about it. I later discovered that story actually may have been started by an Australian woman, and that it had been reposted and retold so many times. When I finally saw it on Facebook, there were 15,000 comments on that story. And they were things like, "Oh yeah, she had it coming to her," or "two wrongs don't make a right." The weirdest one, well, first of all, they were all filled with anger. They were filled with hostility. And the worst one was they were mad at this woman because she had relayed a story that they were saying wasn't her story. The fact is, I'm not going to convince 15,000 people to be more kind. But I figure if I can be more kind and you can be more kind, maybe together we can help make this world a kinder place. According to the psalmist, not only has kindness or chesed, I'm going to be saying kindness, chesed, loving kindness, it's all the same. Chesed existed since the beginning of time. Actually, it was essential in creation. Psalm 89:3. Olam chesed yibaneh. The world was built upon kindness. Rabbi Aaron of Radzin wrote, the intention from the very first moment of creation came forth from God's simple will, as primordial as God's self, with no initiative from the side of creation at all, for nothing had yet been created that could bring about such an awakening. What it means for the world to be built upon God's will to be kind will go a long way in understanding for us what it means to be kind. Firstly, if the world was created from the chesed, or the loving kindness inside God, then that divine spark is in every act of kindness. that we perform, and it makes us all partners in this building of the foundation of the world that is kindness. And secondly, it leads to this notion that the underlying foundation of our lives, it's a gift. The world didn't deserve to be created. Human beings don't merit existence. How can we feel anything but gratitude for the gift of life itself when we realize that it was given to us through the kindness of the Creator? Once we realize this, we can understand that our own acts of kindness towards others helps us to build the world like brick by brick, with each kind action being a brick of gratitude and appreciation for life itself. Now, I do want to point out something at this time. There is a difference between being kind and being nice. When we do nice things for people, we do it so that they will think that we're nice. I mean, not always, but it is a major aspect of being nice. It's a social expectation to be a nice person. And in many cases, we do it because there literally can be personal consequences if we don't. If you're not nice to a waiter in a restaurant, the service may suffer. If you're not nice to your friends, you may not be invited to things, or you might even be excluded from your friend group. If you're not nice to your partner, I'm not going there. If you're not nice at work, you could get fired. Or think about how much talk there is nowadays about toxic work environments. In all these cases, there are real personal consequences if you're not a nice person. But being kind is different. Alan Morinus, in his book Everyday Holiness, writes, Chesed involves acts that sustain the other. We're meant to offer real sustenance to one another. To qualify as chesed, these actions need to come out of kindness and no other motive. True chesed involves offering without any expectation of return, even gratitude. The Talmud tells us that acts of loving kindness are superior even to charity. In Sukkot 49b, it says, charity can be done with one's money. Acts of loving kindness can be done with one's money and one's person. Charity can be given only to the poor, whereas acts of kindness can be given to both the rich and the poor. And charity can be given to the living only, whereas acts of loving kindness can be given to both the living and the dead. In fact, one of the best examples of an act of chesed, of loving kindness, is the act of burying a person. Specifically, at the end when we cover the grave with dirt from a mound next to the interment site. This is actually referred to as a chesed shel emet, a true kindness. Certainly we do it out of our love and devotion to the person who's passed away, but there is no expectation, obviously, that the deceased will ever return that act of loving kindness. Here's a story I actually read in Reader's Digest. Quote, leaving a store, I returned to my car only to find that I'd locked my keys and my phone in the car. A teenager riding his bike saw me kick a tire and say a few choice words. What's wrong, he asked. I explained my situation, and I said, but even if I could call my wife, she can't bring me her car keys since we have only one car, and this is it. He handed me his phone, and he said, call your wife and tell her I'm coming to get the key. I was like, that's 7 miles round trip. And he said, don't worry about it. He took off. An hour later, comes back and returned my key. I offered him some money, but he refused. Let's just say I needed the exercise, he said. And like a cowboy in the movies, he rode off into the sunset. That took place in Nicholasville, Kentucky. The teen in that story was not being nice. He was being kind. Also, think about this. If he had just passed by and not helped, his life would not have changed at all. Notice, there are no personal consequences for not being kind in the same way there are from not being nice. Why is it so important to think about this and speak about this right now? It feels to me as if we've moved away from kindness. Or should I say, the impulse to be kind. I don't know the reason for this. I don't even know if there is one reason, right? We could start with the pandemic. We could move to the political climate. We could talk about the climate, the economy. Whatever the reason is, it feels like we forgot that we actually gain something, and so does the recipient, from being kind. Dr. Claudia Hammond, who presented the kindness test on BBC Radio, you can actually go online and take this test. I took it, and I did not get a very good score. When we asked participants how they felt after receiving an act of kindness, the participants used words most commonly happy, grateful, loved, relieved, pleased. And after giving an act of kindness, people not only feel more connected to others and happier, but they said it helps them to feel as if they're a good person and actually that there's meaning to their lives. Katrina Tarver of The Pleasant Mind tells us being kind makes you feel good, helps deal with anxiety, it's contagious, it reduces stress, it helps form new bonds. Kindness does that. If that were a pill, we'd all be waiting at the drugstore hoping our insurance covered it. The place where it seems like lack of kindness certainly affects many, many people is at work. In the United States, from 2021 to 2022, work stoppages increased 50% to a total of 420. Over 200,000 people were affected. In California, in 2023, this year, and it's not even done yet, in California alone, there have been a total of 207 labor actions, including the strikes that are going on in Los Angeles that we all hear about. Writers Guild, SAG-AFTRA, the Unite Here, Local 11 hotel workers, the City Workers, Service Employees International Union, 721, representing over 100,000 city workers in Los Angeles. And yesterday, I heard the United Auto Workers are going on strike. According to an NBC survey, while 77% of executives believe that workers' mental well-being improved in the last year, only 33% of employees felt that way. An even lower percentage, under 30%, felt their social and financial well-being are in a better place. Very few. How does kindness work into this? Mahfouz Ahmed, a CEO and principal founder of Dices, writes this in Fast Company. Nearly 1/3 of workers say their company's leadership has embraced kindness as a value less so since the COVID-19 pandemic began. 76% of workers say their company's leadership has embraced the value profits over people at levels that are at the same or more since the COVID-19 pandemic began. However, organizations who put kindness ahead of profits, they have employees who are 120% more likely to feel a sense of meaning and purpose in their current job. And 90% of them are more likely to have a strong desire to think of new and innovative ideas. This is a call to all of us who are in positions of leadership, in our workplaces or elsewhere. There are many in this room that fit that description, I feel. Lead with kindness. Put kindness towards human beings before profits and our own self-interests. Call me naive, but isn't there enough money to go around to make a living? Being kind, it benefits both the leader and the led, where everyone feels purpose. Everyone feels meaning. I want to end with this. In the Jewish mystical tradition, Chesed, loving kindness, is one of the 10 sfirot. The sfirot are God's emanations. They're the aspects of God that we find in the world. And the image that's usually used to talk about these sfirot is a human being. And the first three aspects of God are the will, wisdom, and understanding. All three of them, right, are thought. They're thoughts. They happen in our head. The other 7 all inhabit the rest of the body and are represented through action. The first of these is Chesed, loving kindness. Being the first action is important. Rabbi Shimon Lieberman writes, Chesed, kindness, is proactive. It is the initiator of interaction and must therefore be the first of the sfirot of action. Being first carries within itself a property that no other element in the universe possesses. Every action in the universe has a cause, except that which is the first one. Within the sphere of visible action, Chesed, kindness, is without cause, a proactive expression of expansiveness. God created the world with kindness as an expression of expansiveness, without a reason, just kindness. Our acts of kindness can be an initiator of goodness in the world. I sincerely believe that. One that begins a chain of action where kindness leads to kindness, which leads to kindness in our homes, in our schools, in our places of work. And if kindness is contagious, then let's begin a new pandemic of kindness. One that actually may require that we leave our home and go out into the world and live kind. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May it be God's will. Shana Tova. Shabbat Shalom.